He is an associate pastor here at Surprise Apostolic Church. He is also a representative at the State House. Please welcome Pastor Montenegro.
All right, well, welcome everybody. First and foremost, thank you. This is an honor for me to be in front of you all. And for honor, I was here to honor you, your work, what you're doing, and your families as well. You know, it's amazing how we sometimes fail to understand how the brave men and women who leave every morning or every evening to work, their families recognize that. It's such a dangerous time every day because they wonder if we're going to see their loved one yet again. And I want you to know that at the core of myself, my family, and our church, we respect you. And we thank you for what you do. Los apreciamos y honramos el trabajo que ustedes hacen. And especially for today, you know, we're honoring part of Hispanic Heritage Month. We're honoring the Hispanic men and women of law enforcement, the county sheriff's office, and what you do, what you bring to our communities as well. So I wrote down some notes because I get nervous and I start shaking, and we don't have a podium here, so you'll see my legs shake. But I wanted to just share with you some things, and I want to start with the story first that I read that I thought was really, really serious. Not really, it's funny, but I thought it was. So I want to share with you, and it has to do with a young officer. I don't know what they call him. He's in the academy. He's getting ready to take his test to become an officer, and you'll relate. I guess there's an exam right at the end that you have to take and pass in order to continue. And one of the questions on there had, what would you do? And it gives them a scenario to the young cadet or the to-be officer. What would you do? And it has to do with problem solving as he's taking the final exam at the police academy. And so this is what the question says. It says, you are on patrol in the outer city when an explosion occurs in a gas main in a nearby street. While you're on investigation, you find that one of the large holes that has been made in the footpath, and it was so big that it overturned a van nearby. Now when you get close, you see that inside the van there's a strong smell of alcohol. Both of the occupants, there's a man and there's a woman, are injured. You recognize the woman as the wife of the chief of police who's at a conference out of town. You'll get it. Wait for it. As you're looking, a passing motorist stops to offer you assistance, and you realize that this man is wanted for armed robbery. Suddenly, a man runs out of a nearby house shouting that his wife is expecting a baby and that the explosion made that birth imminent. Another man is crying for help as the explosion blew him into the nearby or adjacent canal, and he doesn't know how to swim, so he's yelling for help. So the question says, describe in a few words what actions you would take. So the young man thought for a moment. He picks up his pen to write, and he writes, I would take off the uniform and mingle with the crowd. Wait for it, it will get there. The things that you have to see every day, the things that you have to go through every day, sometimes you are the only ones that know. You know, you don't bring it home with you, you don't share it sometimes because it's a lot. And we honor you today as well. And as we honor the Hispanic contributions, you know, I was doing a little bit of research to see what those contributions are that the Hispanic community or people of Hispanic descent have done to the country or been to the country. And I thought they were marvelous. Hispanics, and I think I can include myself in that. I speak Spanish. I was born outside the country. You know, we come in from different backgrounds. Some people were born here, some people were born outside of the country. But one thing is for certain, that we share a desire for that American dream. To be better and to make this country better for our families. Nationally, there have been over 3 million Hispanic-owned companies, or there are over 3 million Hispanic-owned companies with over 500 billion in revenue. New Latino entrepreneurs nearly doubled from 10.5 to 19.5 between 1996 and 2012. And that number keeps growing now since we're in 2016. The number of Hispanic firms are growing more than 4 times faster than the overall U.S. firms in this country. If it were a nation in itself, the U.S. Hispanic market would be one of the top 10 economies in the world. And we don't even have to go outside of the state to recognize the amount of leadership and wonderful attributes that the Hispanic community has brought to the state of Arizona. I mean, it's traced back not to just being part of the community, but in 1864, during territorial times, there were Hispanics, Latinos who were involved at the legislature or in public service, already in leadership. So this is something that is not new. Hispanics, Latinos have always been part of helping lead our communities and such a strong fabric in our communities. Which is why it explains how ingrained you and how ingrained your families are in our communities, and that legacy that we have here in Arizona of having such a strong, vibrant, and beautiful Hispanic community. And when it comes to the area of law enforcement, we don't have to go far, but just to look across the table from me, to see that badge that is being worn by a person that represents a family, the fabric of this state. And for this, we owe you much gratitude. And for this, we owe you a tremendous amount of thanks. But I want you to thank you for 3 things here today. I'm not planning to go long, I promise. If I get long, I'll call the piano player up there. But in law enforcement, in the public service that you do, there's 3 things that jumped out at me and that are biblical as well. First of all, it is the calling that you have. Second of all, it is the courage that you display. And third, not last, is the service that you give to our communities. And this deserves much gratitude and thanks. You know, I love bringing in scripture or biblical text because this is really at the heart of what this country is. Faith. Benjamin F. Morris writes that the revolution or the struggle for liberty and independence and the constitutional government had its source in religion. And it was the cause of its energy and final victory. And history, at its records, as it records, it shows us throughout the ages that the process of the nations to bring the communities to higher conditions or to freedom and prosperity are part of religion, and that it has been a companion of liberty through all of her, speaking of the country's conflicts. So faith is something that is not only ingrained in our communities, but also ingrained in our country. And for this, I wanted to read a scripture to you. And if you could put it up for me, it's in Matthew chapter 5, and verses 1 through, I won't read them all because I'm going to be here all night. But here, I'll read it with you from up here. Matthew, they shall be comforted. And it keeps going. Blessed are those who are meek, for they shall inherit the earth. You're fine. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are those that are merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are those with a pure heart, for they shall see God. And this is the verse that I will attribute to you all. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. This is a calling that I believe with all of my heart is extended to all of you who are peacekeepers. It's biblical. And the scripture gives it to us also in the letter written that Paul, one of the apostles, writes to the people in Rome, the Romans they're called. In chapter 13, verses 4 and 5, it talks about how it is a calling, and God has placed those authorities there to keep the peace. And I believe that you could flat out see that this is where the term protect and serve comes from. It is a calling that God has extended to you to protect the community and to serve as well. To do good is the quote that it uses in Romans. So I want to thank you for accepting that call. For accepting that call that is so honorable among our communities, among our families, to serve and to protect. And I want to thank you as well. The term that it really uses is for he or she, to be clear, for he or she are God's servant for you or to you to do good. And that's all people of government. Not just law enforcement. Anybody in the public service, the number one thing that we are called is to serve the community. We are here for them. And then the second part that it gives in that same scripture is to restrain evil. And that is where they're there to protect us, where you are here to protect. And that is something that is honorable. In fact, that is what the founding fathers envisioned when they formed the country. That was the number one role of government, to protect. And so I always love to make sure that we point out that you are in reality, you are the front lines of liberty, along with those men and women that serve abroad. But you are also on the front lines of liberty because you're doing the number one thing that government is intended to do, is to protect. And the service and the sacrifice that you all do, we thank you for that courage. It takes a lot of courage to kiss your wife, your husband, your babies. When you leave you leave your house, your home every day, and you go and serve and you put yourself in harm's way. It takes a lot of courage. And I remember reading a quote that goes something along the lines of, courage is not the absence of fear, but it is overcoming that fear. And so we thank you for what you do, for overcoming the obstacles, and for putting yourselves on the line, and for having that courage. And that's the courage that we can go throughout history, not only patriarchs or matriarchs or founders of the country or leaders, whether political or science or doctor or medicine. Everybody had to have the courage to step out and lead in whatever area they have been called. So you have done the same, and we thank you for that. And that risk or that sacrifice and that service does not come at an easy price. In 2013, the numbers that I saw, we had about 107 law enforcement officers lose their life. In 2014, we had about 117. 107 in 2013, 117. In another number gave me 119, so you can choose which one. But those were officers that lost their life in the line of duty. And then in 2015, the last number I saw was 125. One would be a price too high to pay and sacrifice, too high to make. Yet, every day you do this for us. And you go out there and you face, doesn't matter what peril. Thank you for that courage. Thank you for that service. Thank you for that sacrifice. Como comunidad, and I'll translate this, as a community, hay una grande, no solo satisfacción, pero gratitud por las familias y por los hombres y las mujeres que cada día sirven para proteger nuestras comunidades. Y les debemos un grande número, quizás una grande cantidad, voy a decir mejor, de respeto y agradecimiento. As a community, as families, we owe you a great deal of gratitude and respect for what you do. And we thank you for that. Lastly, I just want to say that our country is going through a tremendous, difficult time. Some of us have never seen this, some of us have, some of us have not. And in everything that we've been taught to do, and everything that the Hispanic community does, we honor and we respect the men and the women that are in uniform. You talk to any family, there is a tremendous amount of respect for what you do. And I know that the news and I know that things are tumultuous around the country. And I believe that our country, because of our families, because of the strength in our community, we will rise from this. We will be better. We're going through a tremendous amount of difficulty, and sometimes it's hard to see it through, but I believe that the American spirit, which doesn't come in one color, shape, or form, but the American spirit sees this and grows from it, and we will grow from it, and we will rise from this. And it will be because of men and women like you, who put on the uniform, don't ask questions, but who serve and sacrifice faithfully. Whether you're Asian, whether you come from wherever you come from, you put on that uniform and it has no color other than blue, other than sacrifice, other than service. And for that, from the bottom of my heart, we thank you. I thank you. Thanks for letting me speak to you today. I want you to know that we will continue to have your back. We will continue to be there for you in whatever we can do. And we are grateful for everything that you do. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor Steve. Tremendous word. We really appreciate that. And by the way, nice. Pastor, he talked about being on the front line of liberty. And Sheriff also said that that includes our men and women who work in the jail system. Because we always have the first thought is the deputy or the police officer on the street, but the officers in the jails do just as much as an important job to keep the community safe. At any given time in our 7 jails that we operate in the Maricopa County, 1,000 inmates. But through the year, in 1 year's time, we'll have over 100,000 inmates pass through the system. And it's our officers who are working diligently every day in the jail system, taking care of that situation for us and for the community that makes us safer. So thank you for the detention officers for the jobs that they do. You had mentioned that it takes someone in blue to protect us. We do wear brown in the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. And I'll borrow the sheriff's joke, and apologies to the Phoenix police officer. It takes 10 browns to make 1 blue. Or is it the other way around? It's the other way around. So we thank all our law enforcement officers for the jobs they do for us in this community and around the nation.